And so, another adventure began. We made our way back to base after all the other things had happened. And we had several weeks of downtime, which was nice for our characters, of course. And during this time, Commander Warmonger was given a message from Dr. Destruction telling us that he had a special mission that was exclusively for us. Namely, he knew that he knew where the satellite that controlled the vast majority of the Vizori troops was located. And because of this, what he wanted us to do was go ahead and prepare for a mission to teleport onto the satellite and shut down the Vizori drones, if at all possible. And then afterwards, escape and possibly blow the satellite up so that no one could turn them back on or whatever. Right? So that was our plan. And we were supposed to meet up with him in 3 weeks. So after the 3 weeks passed, we got into the blimp that Warmonger had made for us, that we usually went through and traveled in so often, flying around and flying very tiny through the sewers. We made our way to where we had last met Dr. Destruction when he had sent us to Atlantis. Now, mind you, when we last went to Atlantis, I forgot to mention this last time, but we did manage to find the crown that we were after. And so we got that to Destruction, and he was basically telling us, this crown is what I need, but before I can use it, you need to make sure that their drones are disabled. So we went towards the place where Dr. Destruction should have been, but instead of him actually being there, well, we found an empty lab, and a lot of stuff was missing. So while this was going on, we heard a bunch of noise happening up above, and Becky went ahead and decided to check broadcasts and monitor what was going on in the surface and what's happening above us. And we got news reports of fights in the street, apparently between superpowered beings and possibly the Vizori, and all kinds of just absolute hell was breaking out up above. And in the middle of all of this, while all this is happening, Dr. Destruction pretty much put out a message. All Omega cells, report now. You must activate, you must fight, you must get, do your thing, basically. So we made our way up to the surface, and as we did so, we basically saw a lot of fighting going on, both between, the first fight that we actually ran in on was against the blacksmith and several superhero types. And we actually lended a hand to the heroes in this case, because the blacksmith had been, turned into a horrific zombie machine bastard man. And, we kind of didn't want to let him just run around wreaking absolute havoc for everybody. So we engaged into a fight. What it basically boiled down to was a lot of us just shot the living shit out of him. And when he went down, he had some kind of super powered armor garbage thing on him that just exploded and utterly sent out like this weird wave of energy, but it didn't actually physically hurt anybody. It put these weird blue tokens. I'm not sure what exactly they were. I know that they came into effect, but I don't know exactly what it is. All I know is that we had the sorcerer looking into it, because basically the only characters that had gone along were Vyers, Becky, Ramona, the sorcerer, some robots that Mr. Smith and Warmonger had made, and Slayer and Zephyr, because Zephyr is the new character that used to be Blindside. And we only had the 9 of us there because we were expecting to go right up to the satellite, and then we suddenly found out that we had to have this fight. So when we first found out that we had to have this fight, we called back to base, bring the Ravens, which is basically, during the downtime, I had time to purchase things. So my character bought, like, an entire fleet of anti-gravity motorcycles, cars, and APCs. And Warmonger also asked that one of the APCs be brought along. So, in the meantime, all the way across town, the minions that Vyers has are just all rushing through the sewers, making their way towards where the fight that we're having is, while all of this ridiculous action is going on. The blacksmith goes down. We help some of the heroes heal their wounded a little bit, and they kind of, retreat off to find their next fight or cover or help or whatever. And we go to look for the next fight that we can get into to try and, quell some of the utter chaos that's going on. So we approach the next fight, and the next fight has, like, this line of cops hidden behind a barricade, and they're trying to fight against a combination of drones, and it looks like, if you remember way back when we were supposed to be invading the lair of a villain called Hydra in the sewers, and he had this guy that was under him called Alpha who was calling shots for him, and there was this really big dude who's just basically Big Bad Bear, that we thought that we had killed, but we didn't actually kill him, and we gave him back to Alpha. Well, they're there. Both of them are there. Warmonger notices that while it seems like Hydra is partly under some kind of control, possibly, we don't know. It looks like the Pazori stuff, but it also looks like the technology that's being used on Big Bad Bear is different from that's on Hydra. And he's there, and they're fighting against this other villain who's basically just junk pile, is what he's called, which is this gigantic amalgamated robot made out of trash that is covered in people who are basically wielding weapons and attacking for him, and he's just like being a living fortress, helping defend them and all kinds of other stuff like that. And the drones are there, the police are there, there's some crazy things that Hydra has that are like floating skulls following him around. And Mr. Smith sends his new robot after him, and at the same time, Warmonger is having this new thing that he had installed on the Zeppelin fire off, which is this absolutely ridiculous, it's like a gigantic fist cannon thing that creates earthquakes, and it's a gun, but it's like a gigantic fist that shoots out of the front of the figurehead of the Zeppelin, which is fashioned to look like our fallen comrade Cognis. And like the way that it's described as firing is like all the tentacles come out of Cognis, and the fist comes out and gets like revved up and fires like an earthquake shattering punch at them. It kind of locks Big Bad Bear in. We end up destroying most of the drones because of the fact that both Mr. Smith's robot has his way with several of them, and then he uses dragon breath and kills like a whole bunch of the others. But after we had like shot at Hydra and Big Bad, Hydra, like, he did something to the drones, and like he sucked them up, like he absorbed them and healed himself in some way or another. And then he did something really freaky to Slayer, and we don't know what it was. All we know is that Slayer became really freaking powerful, and he lost his mind, and he just started killing the cops that we were trying to help. And as he started killing the cops that we were trying to help. The drones that were approaching started attacking the Zeppelin, and all kinds of crazy bullshit is happening, and we ran out of time, and I have no idea what's gonna happen next, and you guys are gonna have to tune in next week to see what happens in our next adventure in Savage Worlds. I hope you enjoyed the story. I hope you've enjoyed how things are going so far, and I will see you again next week.